friends, it's 9/11. It's 16 years after 9/11. And we're going to talk about that. Today seems fitting. 9/11 conspiracy theories attribute the planning and execution of the September 11th attacks against the U.S. to parties other than or in addition to Al-Qaeda, including that there was advanced knowledge of the attacks among high-level government officials. Proponents of these theories claim that there are inconsistencies in the official conclusions or evidence that was either ignored or overlooked. The most prominent conspiracy theories of the collapse of Twin Towers and 7 World Trade Center were the result of a controlled demolition rather than structural failure due to impact and fire. Another prominent belief is that the Pentagon was hit by a missile launched by elements from within the U.S. government, or that a commercial airliner was allowed to do so via an effective stand-down of the American military. Possible motives claimed by conspiracy theorists for such actions include justifying the invasions of Afghanistan and Iraq to advance their geostrategic interests, such as plans to construct a natural gas pipeline through Afghanistan. Other theories revolve around authorities having advanced knowledge of the attacks and deliberately ignoring or assisting the attackers. My friends, let me tell you about these crazy, harebrained, wacko conspiracy theories about 9/11. They're true. Elements within our government, within our covert agencies, did, in fact, perpetrate 9/11. As someone who has studied this extensively over the past 10 years, innumerable books, articles, documentaries, personal interviews with people on this show, it has become clear to me when you connect the dots, and it's not very difficult, 9/11 was a conspiracy. And so I am devoting today's show to a documentary called 9/11 Anatomy of a Great Deception. I just posted it on my Facebook page, Real Truth Radio. I'm going to play it throughout the show. It's over an hour and a half long. Obviously, we're only going to get to about half of it, but it's very, very important. And before we go to a break and come back with the video, I want to tell you not to be afraid. Not to be afraid to stand up for truth. No matter how many people tell you you're a conspiracy theorist or a wingnut or a crazy, believe me, if you know something is true, and I know that this was a conspiracy, anybody who's taken the time to research it knows it. If you know it's true, don't ever be afraid to speak the truth. It's Monday. This is Real Truth, and it's 9/11. We'll be back.
Of these were abducted by non-family members. Keep an eye out for youngsters at play, and if you see anything suspicious, contact the authorities immediately. This message from Piccolo's Restaurant in Denver. It's not only the best Italian and Mexican cuisine, it's the people who care. Give them a call at 303-757-5166. 303-757-5166. Piccolo. We thank them for doing a great job keeping our live, shop, and raise a family. We realize that the job is taking time. This message comes from this beautiful really. Call 352-2253. They're on the air because they care. The uniform people, including.
All right, folks, this is the very first time I've ever devoted an entire show to a documentary or a video, but I think it's completely appropriate. My name's Howard Riell. This is Real Truth. And it is 16 years after the events of 9/11. Excellent documentary called 9/11 Anatomy of a Great Deception. I'm going to play it for you now. I'm going to play it throughout the show. I urge you to go online, watch it, share it. There are other documentaries about 9/11. There are some that are frankly garbage. Of course, you get the haters crawling out from under the rock saying, Israel was... That's crap. Israel had nothing whatsoever to do with it. The worst part is that the people who did perpetrate 9/11 are still at large, still in positions of power. That said, here's the documentary, 9/11 Anatomy of a Great Deception, and this is dedicated to the memory of those who died.
The Pentagon and Shanksville planes respectively. Somewhere I saw a story claiming the president's camp didn't want to scare the kids at the school, and that's why he stayed, which I found hard to believe. Well-trained professionals are going to risk the balance of power in the world to spare the feelings of a few kids who routinely practice fire drills anyway? Well, I guess the answer was yes, because Bush stayed until 9:34 a.m., a full 29 minutes after it was known we were under attack. Think about that. That would have been 29 grueling minutes for everyone, especially those assigned to protect the president, wondering if some hijackers gotten ambitious, maybe changed their plans in the last few days after the school visit was made public. I guess someone high up in the president's camp must have known or thought they were safe. I mean, what else could it be? But how could anyone have known that? It had me thinking, but it wasn't a huge deal. I was more intrigued by the type of people I came across who also had similar questions about 9/11. These weren't conspiracy theorists as I pictured them. These were people in government, aviation, civil defense, architecture, science, engineering, and the military. I decided to look further. I still had no idea the impact this would have on my life. I started by refamiliarizing myself with the incident, or I should say set of incidents. Of course, we all remember the second tower being hit, but I didn't put much thought into the other parts of that day, and soon after looking, I was reminded that there were several incredible events on 9/11. I put almost no thought into the particulars of that day for 10 years, but that was about to change. In chronological order, the official version goes like this. 4 planes were hijacked by 19 mostly Saudi Arabian terrorists who then flew or attempted to fly those planes into 4 U.S. buildings: World Trade Center 1, World Trade Center 2, the Pentagon, and the U.S. Capitol. 3 of them were successful. American Airlines Flight 11 hit the first tower, the North Tower, at 8:46 a.m. United Airlines Flight 175 hit the South Tower at 9:03 a.m. American Airlines Flight 77 hit the Pentagon at 9:37 a.m. At 9:59, the South Tower collapsed after burning for less than an hour. At 10:07 a.m., United Flight 93 crashed in a field in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. Then at 10:28 a.m., the North Tower collapsed. And I barely remembered that a third building at the World Trade Center, Building 7, collapsed at 5:20 p.m. to close out the day. The National Institute of Standards and Technology, more commonly known as NIST, backed up the official government version that intense fires weakened the steel and caused all 3 buildings to fail, including Building 7, which oddly enough was not hit by an airplane, nor was it exposed to jet fuel, which is what I thought melted the towers to get that progressive collapse started.
In fact, my friends, jet fuel doesn't burn hot enough to melt a building like the Twin Towers. Can't melt a steel frame building. Never happened in the history of the world, but it happened 3 times on 9/11. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to continue this fascinating look at what happened 16 years ago today. I'm sure you remember exactly where you are and what you were doing and with whom back then. I certainly do. We'll continue. My friends, this is real truth. I mean, this is really real truth. Go nowhere.
Power has been providing reliable electrical power systems in the Rocky Mountain area since 1992. Our systems rely on the sun to help make you self-reliant for your power needs. Solar energy can be scaled to fit any situation, from complete power independence to backup power for the short term. Our expertise focuses on standalone power, but we have extensive experience with utility interactive systems as well. Custom-tailored capabilities from emergency lighting all the way to commercial scale power. Great Plains Power is a full-service company. We service everything we sell. We provide and design turnkey packages, custom design system, and parts for do-it-yourself. With more than 20 years of specialized experience at your disposal, let us know what your power concerns or goals are. Reach us by phone or the internet. Call 303-239-9963. That's 303-239-9963. Or go to GreatPlainsSolar.com.
Your local DuPont Pioneer team doesn't take with you from the word go lightly, especially when it comes to forages. Just ask your fellow producers, folks like Amos Smith.
We have an awesome support team from Pioneer. I think that they're probably one of the reasons why we are successful.
And Bruce Cullum.
They'll come out anytime you want to call them and help us. You don't get that from all your other seed dealers. But these guys are here all season long.
As well as Ken Phelps.
Just know that the research that Pioneer's done, it really it shows, and that the cows really do well with it, so we continue to use it.
Or Billy Rucker.
All in all, seem like Pioneer is always in the top. I believe green, and I believe Pioneer.
Want a team that's with you from the word go? That's DuPont Pioneer. Ask them about leveraging the Silage Zone resource to produce the highest quality forages for your operation. Pioneer, with you from the word go.
All right, guys, welcome back to Real Truth. I am Howard, Real Special 9/11 edition. We're listening to the documentary 9/11, Anatomy of a Great Deception. And like I said before, you will find it in its entirety, the whole video, the whole documentary on my Facebook page, Real Truth Radio. Let's go back to it. Oh. Uh-oh. Looks like I accidentally extinguished the video. Well, my friends, you know, that's not surprising since I am absolutely a disaster when it comes to, let's see. Absolutely a disaster when it comes to technology. However, I am not unprepared. Here is a corporate report on 9/11. I'll try and get the documentary back up.
You're listening to the Corbett Report.
Alright guys, I got the video back up. I apologize. Let's go back to it.
equivalent to what's needed to melt steel.
And it takes a blast furnace with air blowing with blowers to
My friends, put a line under that. 1,000 degrees less than what was required to melt that building. It was 1,000 degrees not hot enough to melt the Trade Center, and yet NIST said that's what melted it. Now, my friends, keep in mind something, okay? All these experts, fire protection expert, architects, engineers, they're endangering their careers, their livelihoods. They're endangering their own ability to put food on the table for their families by coming forward and saying these things in public, and yet they are, because it's that important.
told that the planes.
All right, guys, we'll take a break and we'll come back after this. More Real Truth.
Howdy, folks. Have you ever thought about having your own backyard chicken? Now you have a source for certified organic, no GMO, no soy chicken feed. HappyHens.biz can even deliver, or you can pick up. Call me, Tim, at 303-829-5948, or go to HappyHens.biz for pricing and ingredients. At HappyHens.biz, we love HappyHens.biz. Or call us at 303-829-5948.
Do you have any health challenges that concern you? If you said yes, you are ready to evolve yourself. Call today and qualify for a free pain treatment. 970-667-4669.
I'm Dr. Stanowski, chiropractor, radio host, author of Evology, a new healthcare paradigm for the 21st century. My all-natural approach is affordable and can show improvement in as little as one visit. Truth be told, holistic health starts with a healthy life plan, and those who execute that plan over a consistent course catch up, heal, and thrive. I guarantee. If your health is fading and on prescription drugs, if you want your energy back, deeper sleep, pain-free, or refocus an unresolved personal injury case, call me and let's get you in the best shape of your life. Schedule a visit with me, Dr. Z.
We are located at the Overland Trail Shop in LaPorte. Call 970-667-4669. COLyourself.com.
Article 4. The right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrant shall be issued but upon probable cause, supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the places to be searched and the persons or things to be seen. American Window Tinting Incorporated in Frighttown reminds parents, keep an eye on your child while shopping. Children lost. This poses an opportunity for a would-be assessor. Please make every effort to keep track of your little ones at all times. If you have information regarding a lost child, call local authorities at once. This message is from American Window Tinting Incorporated in Franklin. For residential or commercial window tinting, call 303-263-4228. He was in the world was living through him, but the world did not know him. He came to his own, and his own did not receive him. But as many as received him, to them he gave the right to become children of God, to those who believe in his name, who were born not of blood, nor of the will of the flesh, nor of the will of man, but of God. The Gospel of John, chapter 1, verse 10 through 13.
All right, guys, it's the anniversary of the 9/11 attacks. And we're listening to a documentary called 9/11 Anatomy of a Great Deception. And a great deception is precisely what it continues to be. Let's go back to the documentary.
In the history of care from labs, nature realizes something else must have been involved in the collapse of at least Building 7, if not all three. Okay, maybe airplanes weaken the structure of the Twin Towers, which we'll be looking into more deeply later. For now, believe it or not, planes have hit many buildings throughout history and none fell. Of course, none were hit with planes as large as the ones on 9/11, but that still leaves Building 7. I couldn't explain it. Can you tell me that if I throw a flaming chunk of metal off of one building, I can make the building next to it collapse in on itself a few hours later? Why do demolition companies even exist if you can just light a few random fires and wait for an implosion? Maybe the steel structure in Building 7 was so badly damaged from falling debris that the entire structure was compromised. It still can't explain the symmetrical collapse, but I looked anyway. Other buildings that have suffered severe structural damage by natural disaster or bombs didn't disintegrate into rubble piles. They stayed together in some way. Even the buildings in the Trade Center complex that suffered worse damage than Building 7 didn't collapse in on themselves. This uneasy feeling was growing, but there was much more to understand about Building 7's collapse, especially before I started jumping to conclusions in my own head. I needed to hear from some experts.
It just didn't add up, the way the whole thing sort of pile drove itself into the ground and all at near free fall speed.
Collapses straight down into its own footprint at free fall speed. This is uncanny. There's 40,000 tons of structural steel designed to resist this collapse.
This building had 40,000 tons of structural steel in its structural system, and that is intended to keep it from going anywhere.
Yeah, animation sequence from the National Institute of Standards and Technology for their model, their mathematical model of the collapse of building number 7. And they have the inside members, the one column gave way, which they claim resulted in the collapse of all the surrounding members, and then this precipitated a global collapse. This would just not be physically possible for a gravitational collapse.
According to NIST, the failure occurred at column 79 on level 12. This means basically they're talking about a single columnar collapse or failure that resulted in a total collapse of the building. That just does not make any sense. Regardless of the engineering, the logic tells you that if you have a single failure at some random point in the building, that the entire building is not going to collapse. Buildings don't break that way.
The story that just a few columns can cause a synchronized global collapse, an implosion, is, well, that's just nonsense.
The exterior columns on the outside as well as on the inside at the bottom would have to be severed almost at the same time.
The building would want to topple over. It would want to bend over
over that weakened area and topple over sideways. What we saw the structures came straight down upon itself.
It cannot happen that when you have asymmetric damage, you will get a perfectly symmetrical collapse.
At free fall speed, that's impossible. That's a violation of the fundamental law of physics that says that for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction.
If you took a billiard ball and dropped at the height of the Twin Towers, and you just merely stopped it and started at every floor in free fall, it would take over 1.5 minutes to reach the ground. The buildings were down in 10 seconds.
Buildings just don't behave like that. If floors fall, they tend to fall and are braced by the floor directly beneath it. And there's some delay there. And then the next floor falls with 2 floors, and there's some more delay.
The buildings actually accelerated as they came down, meaning they were not getting resistance from these massive columns in the center of the core of this building. And when it's all finished, the outside walls from the lower floors are piled one on top of the other right in the middle of the building.
So it's fiction to say that a building as modern as World Trade Center 7 comes down with no resistance.
Doesn't add up.
The official explanation was dead wrong. Just not possible.
Not possible. Just doesn't make sense. It's not how it works.
It can't happen.
Never before in history. It just can't happen.
Well, that's just nonsense.
And that cannot happen.
Couldn't happen. It's fiction.
There's definitely much more going on than just fire.
This was a controlled event.
The symmetry is the smoking gun.
In short, the evidence is clear. We're witnessing not the collapse of a building, but its demolition.
At the time I was thinking, wait a minute. My heart was pounding, my adrenaline was flowing, and I had a knot in my stomach. You know, the collapse never looked right to me, but then again, I never really thought that it defied the laws of physics. My imagination started to run wild. Could the hijackers have wired the buildings? Maybe the government didn't want us to know how really lax their security was, and that's why they covered up this fact. Maybe it was pre-wired for some reason, but that made no sense. If it was a controlled demolition, it would explain how much of these buildings were reduced to ash. It would explain why the towers fell after burning for only an hour or so. It would explain why they imploded instead of tearing apart. It would explain why they all fell at close to free fall speed. It sure looked like a controlled demolition, in retrospect. I couldn't stop at this point. I needed to know more. Late nights, coffee, research. My life was changing before my very eyes. I had taken my very first step down the rabbit hole. Little did I know how much deeper it would go. By now I knew that fire didn't bring down the buildings. And even if fire could somehow melt steel, the buildings would not have fallen in on themselves. They would have tipped over or torn apart. I was starting to find credible people talking about controlled demolitions and the use of explosives and molten steel. My mind kept wandering, trying to imagine how all this tied together. But first, I still needed to understand more about what happened.
And what we find down there is pools of molten iron.
What does that mean?
Several tons. Exactly. What is that doing there? The first responders see it. The structural engineers see it. It's documented by FEMA, the melting of steel. Normal office fires is what's supposed to have brought these buildings down, along with jet plane impacts. The jet fuel and office fires don't produce molten iron or molten steel. It doesn't begin to melt until 3,000 degrees. At one point, I think there were about 2,800 degrees. See the stuff he's pulling out? Yeah. Red hot.
Now, my friends, I don't know if we're going to get to it while we're on the air, but traces of thermite were found on the steel beams in the World Trade Center, after which thermite is something that burns at a hot enough chemical temperature to melt steel, but you can't get thermite unless you get it from the military. So 19 hijackers could not have coated the building with thermite in the first place, and yet it was there. That's what brought down 9/11, together with the impact of the airplanes. This is a very, very, very involved, very complex, very large topic, and I urge you to research it. We'll continue with 9/11, Anatomy of a Great Deception, when we come back here on Real Truth, my friends. Go nowhere.
We know our government is out of control. It's no longer our servant, it's master. Listen to me. Liberty Forum with the Freedom Rider will answer the question, what can we do? Our freedom and liberty is at stake. It's time to act. Those who have given everything for this country would expect no less. Tune in to the new Liberty Forum radio show Fridays at 9 a.m.
No state shall enter into any treaty, alliance, or confederation, grant letters of marque or reprisal, coin money, emit bills of credit, make anything but gold and silver coin a tender in payment of debt, pass any bill of attainder, ex post facto law, or law impairing the obligation of contracts, or grant any title of nobility. Article 1, Section 10.
The Patriot Trading Group is a different kind of gold and silver company, cleaning up the industry for 21 years. Are you tired of the high-pressure sales tactics, the constant phone calls? Are you done with the bait and switch? You just want to be treated fairly with honesty and respect? That's exactly what you get when you call 800-951-0592. You have my word on it. I'm Joe Jigwood, CEO of the Patriot Trading Group. Check us out online at allamericangold.com.
The American Freedom Network is not funded or supported by special interest groups or government programs. The American Freedom Network is not sponsored by advertisers demanding content or programming control. The American Freedom Network is solely funded by you, the listener. Please help keep the American Freedom Network on the air by purchasing one of our sponsors' fine products or by calling 1-800-205-6245 to make a donation. The American Freedom Network needs your help.
All right, my friends, we've only got about 15 minutes left. We're not even a third of the way through this video. I urge you, and we're done today, 9/11. Go to my Facebook page, Real Truth Radio. You'll find the link. Watch the video. Share it. Talk to people about it. This stuff has to be talked about. Don't be cowed and don't cringe. And don't be afraid people are going to think you're a wacko, because you're not. You're not. Let's go back to the documentary.
8 weeks later, we
My friends, take a second and think about this. Average people heard the explosions. Pop, 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 pop. But the government says no one heard them. And so that's the official statement. And that, my friends, is the horror of big government.
What was masterminding these explosions? Why are they?
So you see, my friends, person after person after person after person after person talked about molten steel, but when you ask the guy who works for the government, no one said anything about molten steel. You're beginning to smell something?
I was at the site 2 weeks after it happened with Governor Pataki, right? And they had to cease digging that day. You know why? They were finding pockets of molten liquid metal.
In an office fire, you cannot generate enough heat to melt steel.
So, my friends, here we've got an example of the laws of physics being violated. Now, if you're not familiar with the laws of physics, let me clue you in. You can't violate them. They are the laws that underpin the universe. You can't violate them. They don't take the day off. There are no exceptions. The fire could not have melted the steel in the building and caused it to collapse, and yet the government says it did. So, we're faced with a choice. Do we believe the laws of physics, or do we believe a government that has a lot of motivation to lie? We'll take a break and we'll wrap it up, my friends. It's 9/11 here on Real Truth. We'll be back.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Tom Phillips, founder of the Green Earth. Well, it had to happen. When Colorado legalized marijuana, most people thought the Green Earth was a marijuana dispensary. Also, it was legalized on January the 1st, 2014. The same day we opened our new location at 4565 Kiffin Street, 1.5 blocks south of I-70. There are 83,000 cars a day passing in front of our new location on Kiffin Street, and most of them thought we were a marijuana dispensary. So we changed the name of our retail store to New Genesis Health, but we kept the name of our Green Herb Supplements. So when you come to our new location, look for our new name, New Genesis Health, or call us at 888-765-HERB. That's 888-765-4372. And be sure to listen to the Healthy Nature Show with Linda Phillips every Tuesday at 1 p.m. TLR Associates of Boulder wants you to remember your life began at conception. So does the life of every yet to be born person. Baby and mother both lose when 1 in 3 women go against their decision and choose abortion. Former abortion doctor Nicholson says people do not understand that there are thousands of serious physical complications from abortion every year in this country. Post-abortion pricing includes severe guilt, depression, stress, anxiety, anxiety disorder, sleep disturbance, suicide, violent behavior, sterility, increased risk of miscarriage and delivery complications, and premature birth. International Journal of Epidemiology reported abortion increased risk by 90%. Every helpless baby has the right to life, too. This life-giving message is brought to you by TLR Associates of Boulder, providing a job well done for your home or business with design, stucco, stone, and brick. Call TLR Associates of Boulder, 303-921-3310. TLR Medallion Brand and Stucco Protection serves the Boulder and northern Colorado area.
Alright guys, we've only got 4 minutes left. Let's listen to some more of this documentary. And then you're going to go to my Facebook page and watch the whole thing. 9/11, Anatomy of a Great Deception. Go.
And yet we have evidence of molten iron in the microspheres, in the rubble pile, and the metal pouring out of the side of the tower.
About 7 minutes before its final destruction, almost an hour after the plane hit, molten metal was seen coming out of the northeast corner near the 80th floor.
What was going on here? These guys at NIST are the official version. Office and jet fuel fires can reach about 1600 degrees under ideal conditions, but NIST said that the fires burned at 1800 degrees, which they claim was just enough to weaken and bend the steel, which led to complete failure of each building's infrastructure. But that still leaves us more than 1,000 degrees short of molten metal, which was found all over Ground Zero. They denied that molten metal existed, and they denied that witnesses heard secondary explosions going off. Even the NIST computer animation of Building 7's collapse is inaccurate, showing the outer structural walls crumpling in instead of coming straight down.
The NIST report, on which popular mechanics and much of the press has relied, is not a scientific report. It is a political document.
We need to have an investigation of NIST themselves. I believe that the reports that came out are not true.
So the fact that NIST says that is absolutely, in my opinion, it's criminal. NIST wasn't looking for the truth. They were trying to hide it. But why? Were they asked to falsify their findings? I didn't think they came up with this on their own. When I see John Gross fidget and blush as he states there was no molten metal, I see a man that is doing what many of us do when we don't tell the truth. It's basic human nature. My feelings at the time were like the moment you catch your significant other in a lie. Maybe there's an explanation, but your heart is racing until you get some answers. And if something like that's ever happened to you, you may understand needing to know more, but not wanting to know more, if that makes sense. Was there more evidence of a controlled demolitions besides explosions? And where did the molten metal come from? I needed more before I could get my head around this. I took a deeper look into all the buildings, the airplane strikes, and the possibility of planted explosives. Mostly, I was looking for something to explain away this growing pile of problems. I was looking for answers that could reduce my growing anxiety. Instead, I would fall further down the rabbit hole. By now, Betsy was about to give birth. The idea of putting the business off for a week had turned into a few months, and I couldn't help from talking about my findings all the time, even though Betsy asked me to tone it down. She needed more from me as a husband and father, and I needed more from her to preserve my sanity. Then my dad died, and 8 days later, my son was born. I was all over the place. This prompted my first break. I was in a very strange place, grieving my dad and celebrating my son, while digesting this new information that no one wanted to discuss. What I'd been working on was no secret to my whole family, and everyone seemed pretty relieved when it looked like I was re-entering my normal life. I was enjoying the family and starting to talk about business again, which made Betsy happy.
All right, my friends, I'm going to stop it there because I have to. We're just about out of time. It's called 9/11, Anatomy of a Great Deception. Today is the day. I want you to go to YouTube or go to my Facebook page, Real Truth Radio. Watch the documentary. It is utterly spellbinding. Not just the events of the day 16 years ago, but the crime of the century and the cover-up of the century. The people who perpetrated 9/11 are still at large, still in power, still wealthy and influential, and still laughing at the American people because they've gotten away from it. My friends, I'll be back tomorrow with more real truth. Until then, stay safe, stay healthy, stay angry.